Can I get a hug for anybody who's heard of Ron Paul? Ron Paul 2012 anyway.
Oh, word?
That's right. We need to get rid of the Federal Reserve. We can't have private banks running our money and running our country.
Whoa.
They raise up debt for war and bailing out companies that deserve to go bankrupt. It's not what America's about. We cannot have this. Come on, give me a hug for Ron Paul, 2012. Come on, give me a hug for Ron Paul. We should have communist central banks running our monetary policy. Can I get a hug for anybody who agrees with a free society? Anybody here heard of Ron Paul? Well, if you haven't heard, he is against the Federal Reserve, which is a private bank. It is not part of the government. They issue currency that is based on only the amount of money in circulation. So, all the wars that we are getting into, which are not legal, are backed by worthless money. We don't have gold or silver anymore. This is why we must elect Ron Paul, because he is the only true person in Washington who is talking about these issues. We have to bring freedom back to our monetary policy and our personal habits. We cannot stand illegal wars anymore. Our economy is such that it cannot sustain it. Come on, who wants to end the wars? We have to stop bombing Libya. We can't support this as Americans. It's not right. It is not backed by the Constitution. Come on, Ron Paul, anybody? Come on.
Whoa. This is kind of hard on this angle here.
The government. It is not a part of the government. It never was. They print out currency that is not backed by gold or silver. This gives us a fiat currency which has failed every time throughout history. Bring liberty and the Constitution back to America. We must stand on our founding principles. It is the way to freedom. Come on, give me a hug for Ron Paul. Join the revolution. It's just a re-evolution of our founding principles. We gotta take back the founding principles and bring freedom and liberty back to our country. Aren't you sick of war? Aren't you sick of inflation through central banks and the Communist Manifesto? We cannot afford these wars anymore. There is no reason we should put sanctions on more countries and bombing Libya. Our economy cannot sustain it. This is why we must elect Ron Paul. He's the only person in Washington who has been principled for 30 years or more. He has never voted against the Constitution. He has never voted to raise taxes. He is the only man with integrity. Come on, who here thinks that we should be at war still? Bin Laden is dead. There is no threat.
But what about Bin Laden? 9/11?
We have to get rid of the Federal Reserve. We can't stand inflation anymore. Our money is 90% worthless compared to what it was when the Federal Reserve came in power. This is why everything costs more. So come on. Do not be apathetic. We have to account for where we have been wrong in our policies. Just an issue of tinkering with the code. We must realize that the system itself is the problem. We have to take accountability for where we have been wrong. We have to take back our monetary policy and return it to the people and take it back from central banks, because that is the main problem facing America. Come on, anybody support Ron Paul? Anybody? Come on. for a truck.
Just imagine you're voting for the Phillies. The Phillies endorse Ron Paul. Yeah. Beer endorse Ron Paul. Snacks endorse Ron Paul. How could you not? Are you against snacks? Are you?
I got nothing.
Are you against midday treats?
I got something. I understand that this may not be as fascinating as the NFL lockout or deadbeat politicians sending around pictures of their penis. But this is far more important. We have central banks running our money. We have central banks running up inflation as part of their policy. That is not a free market. That is not what a free society is about. It's not part of our American principles as laid out in the Constitution. We have to acknowledge where we have been wrong in our policies. Our foreign policies are poor, striking people preemptively, immoral and wrong. We can't allow it anymore. It's draining our economy. It cannot sustain itself anymore. This just in. Ron Paul is the only person trying to end the Federal Reserve. This just in. Ron Paul is the only person who is against illegal wars. This just in. Ron Paul is the only person supporting the Constitution, our founding principles, the American spirit. Who here supports the Constitution? I mean, if you can't support the Constitution, come on, give me a hug for the Constitution. Anybody? Please look up Ron Paul in the End the Fed campaign. We cannot allow our country to be ruled by central bankers anymore. The Federal Reserve is the main cause of all of our economic problems through endless debt. What do you own that is important without debt? A car? An education? A business? How about a home? Who here has a mortgage and even dreams of paying it off? We have been made debt slaves by the Federal Reserve, and that's why we must take it back. Our future has been sold out to a private banking organization. Who here is sick of perpetual debt? Who here thinks that it is fair for our children to inherit exorbitant amounts of debt? Who here actually dreams of paying off their mortgage instead of getting the lowest possible monthly rate? These problems are because of the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is not part of the government. It is a central banking organization that prints money out of thin air. Our money is not based on gold or silver as demanded by the Constitution. This is part of the Communist Manifesto. It is un-American and we should reject it. And the way to reject it that I know of is Ron Paul, who has been speaking out against the Federal Reserve for over 30 years. The only person who has consistently voted with the Constitution, never voted for a tax increase in 12 terms in Congress. So let's get behind sound money, not going to preemptive war, and peace and liberty. Ron Paul 2012. Ron Paul 2012.